Hey everyone, welcome. So thank you and welcome to everyone joining this webinar today. This webinar is put on by the Pathways in Business and Environment program at CBAY. So this series brings in sustainability-oriented professionals to campus to discuss the work that they do and the journeys they have taken in their careers. By sharing their stories, speakers provide a set of possible roadmaps for students to follow or avoid. And from the outside, roles at the intersection of business and environment can be difficult to navigate. So this Pathway series aims to give students an idea of the array of opportunities that exist, from big picture strategy to day-to-day details. So just for about the first 30 to 40 minutes, Tony is going to discuss his career path and career at Plastic Bank. And at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please, throughout the entire webinar, put your questions into the Q&A chat. I'll collect them and be able to ask Tony at the end or during the presentation if it is appropriate. So now I'm delighted to introduce Tony Perrotta, Head of Sales and Revenue at Plastic Bank. Plastic Bank is a blockchain-enabled social impact company focused on revealing the value in plastic waste. Tony is a material impact executive. He believes that the most successful companies achieve major breakthroughs through a dedicated group of people who help an organization see things differently and drive serious growth. So Tony joined Plastic Bank after 25 years in sales and leadership with expertise across all sectors, including consumer goods, retail, and pharma. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Tony, and he's going to start out just talking about his career path, how he got there, and a little bit about his background.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate it. Hi to everyone there in the Yale virtual world. Tony Perrotta here. Yes, I am the Global Head of Sales for Plastic Bank. We're headquartered in Vancouver, Canada, but I run sales here on the East Coast from New York. We're a very decentralized team. We've been a decentralized team from the get-go, which is obviously paying some unique dividends right now. We've been prepped for a situation like this haphazardly, and now it's really running full steam. I've got teams in Europe, in Asia, and in North America, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, on the sales side. And then we're also a global company with employees and volunteers around the world. And I'll get into that as well. Before I talk about my career, I think it would be helpful to just provide a very quick snapshot of the Plastic Bank business model and what it is we do. It's a very unique model. I will preface by saying we are not a non-for-profit. We are a proudly for-profit organization. We define ourselves as a social impact company. It's our belief that when capitalism is properly aligned, businesses truly can do well by doing good. And hopefully today I can show you and demonstrate how that's possible with our brands and corporate clients. So with that, I am going to share my screen. Okay, let me just increase this. So the issue at play. We're all too familiar with the issue at hand. Every day, we as consumers, stakeholders, and global citizens are confronted by images like this one. Waste material flowing into our rivers and oceans, wreaking havoc. Consumers looking for a solution, or looking to be part of a solution, or looking for the brands, organizations, governments, and entities that they belong to help identify a solution. Our base belief is that as amazing as it is to coordinate a beach cleanup or to pull plastics from the ocean, unless you turn the tap off at the source, this effort becomes sort of futile. Imagine the example of a sink overflowing in your kitchen. You don't take a mop first and try soaking up the water. Your first reaction, of course, is to turn the tap off and then start cleaning the mess. We take that same view to the material that is leaking into our waterways and oceans. Our view is you need to turn the tap off at the source and prevent additional material from entering our waterways. Here's a clip of what we mean by turning off the tap. This is cell phone footage from one of our collector members in Haiti sharing what waste disposal looks like in some parts of the world. I will tell you, this is where material that is considered valueless typically ends up. It's fairly graphic. Up front, you'll see some imagery initially, and then as we get through the video, you'll see exactly where this material ends up.
Le monde met ça Haïti, attendez. Ça c'est boîte chaîne, n'a regardé là. Ça c'est pont boîte chaîne. Nous avons hauteur de l'eau et toute fatra presque plein la rue là dans le moment. Et de l'eau elle-même, il manquait environ quelques centimètres seulement pour envahir la rue, pour ville là inondée. Mais Haïti a pas l'eau là au début. Les députés, les sénateurs, les gouvernements, pour pouvoir, ça c'est les comme sensibilité peuple, ainsi de suite. Cette vidéo, ça, c'est bon caractère.
So I'll stop the video there. Couple of things to point out. One, unfortunately, this is common not only in Haiti, but around the world, in impoverished communities around the globe. Two, you know, in the initial part of the video, it looks as though this is just one more waste dump in a local neighborhood. In fact, it is not. It is a water-based canal, and waste disposal in these parts of the world is, in essence, taking material that is considered having no value and tossing it in the only disposal system available. That happens to be the local waterway, and disposal becomes, let's wait for the rainy season and have this material wash out of the canal into the open sea. So obviously problematic, obviously concerning, obviously a major challenge. But what if we could change that? What if we could assign a value to this material and help it from being improperly disposed, and at the same time provide income? IBM, a major technology partner of ours and a client, put together a commercial on our behalf to showcase our partnership with them. It gives a really nice encapsulation of our business, and I'd like to share it here now.
What if we could turn trash into money? The Plastic Bank is doing just that by exchanging plastic for digital credit, redeemable for everything from food to education, powered by IBM blockchain. When you understand the potential of new technology, you can put smart to work.
Okay. So our mission at Plastic Bank is simple, but obviously challenging. We want to end plastic waste by revealing its value so it becomes a resource for the world's most impoverished communities. And when we talk about value, what exactly do we mean? Our model goes beyond the typical cash for collection systems that you see around the world. Our collector members can redeem their plastic waste for cash, digital savings, healthcare, school tuition, all the basic essentials that they would need. In addition to that, we provide an exchange rate at the market rate plus a bonus. So our intention here is to go beyond creating a lifelong quote unquote trash picker and help elevate these communities out of the cycle of poverty. In essence, what we do is we're building collection infrastructure in parts of the world where none exists today. Community members are then invited to exchange their waste for cash and digital savings. The material is collected and processed in country, back into a usable state, and reintroduced into the circular economy. None of the material that we collect is landfilled or incinerated. It is all returned back into the circular economy. Our key differentiator is we help brands, businesses, and organizations who want to make this impact bring both social and environmental impact. For a long time, companies that were interested in making a change in the world candidly had to choose. They had to choose between an environmental impact and a sustainability plan, or doing something that was community-based. What we're providing here is an avenue that does both, all provided by blockchain. So we use blockchain for a number of reasons. Its incorruptibility in terms of data, the ability to provide both transparency and security to our clients and our collector members. This is where IBM comes into play. We are a partner with IBM using their Hyperledger blockchain technology, very critical bank level security programming and data system. Use of the blockchain on the client or partner side, again, allows that clear and transparent view into the material that's been collected. Equally important, though, for our collector members, access to our platform powered by the blockchain does two very critical things. One, it allows for a digital identification in parts of the world where a government issued ID is difficult to come by. That in and of itself is very unique. Two, and potentially more powerful, is that digital identification can also begun to be used as a digital credit and revenue history. So I, as a collector member, can approach a conventional bank and say, look, I don't have a quote unquote standard job collecting a paycheck, but I've been involved with the plastic bank for the past 2 years. Here's my collection history. Here's my revenue history. Here's a source of income. And that allows me to access more conventional banking instruments. Whereas previously, members of the communities we serve were left with predatory loan practices and loan sharks. We've got many examples of folks that say, if my spouse becomes pregnant and we want to ensure a healthy birth, we need to pay for a private doctor. That would typically mean a loan that would lock us into debt for 4 to 6 years. In partnership with the plastic bank, I can now approach a conventional loan system and pay back within a year. So some very unique positive input when you come to banking the world's unbankable, which is something that you would not think of when you originally think of plastic. In addition to that, for those corporations that are using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a framework for their own internal CSR initiatives, we're an almost exact overlay. We directly contribute to 14 of the 17 UN SDGs. Obviously, many of you are aware they are sequenced in an order for a reason. The goal being, if you can help end both poverty and extreme poverty, the remaining 16 goals become that much easier. Ending hunger, once you end poverty, becomes a lot easier than starting with hunger in the first place. What sets Plastic Bank apart? Why do brands partner with us? A couple of things I've already mentioned. One is we are the only human-powered collection system today that does use blockchain at the core of our platform. Two, we bring both that environmental and social impact that I discussed earlier. That includes this financial inclusion sentiment. We create enduring impact. We are not a beach cleanup. This is not a one and done. We build sustainable infrastructure that are profitable in parts of the world, lasting from 3 to 5 years plus. Again, these are not short-term engagements. We have no intention of entering a community, providing a source of income, only to walk away 6 months later, removing that revenue stream. We are global. For companies that are multinational, looking for a holistic solution to this issue of sustainability, we are active and up and running in Indonesia, the Philippines, Haiti, Brazil, and Egypt. Our 2020 roadmap plan includes additional expansion into Africa south of Egypt, the potential for one additional country in Asia, and then 2021, we'll look at an entirely different roadmap. And finally, again, a critical component of our program is, our goal is to help reveal the value in this waste material to help elevate out of the cycle of poverty. The digital savings component that we provide gives folks in an impoverished community the ability to see into the future. In a number of the communities in which we operate, having cash in the home is a liability. It's a liability for two key reasons. One, Cash in the home leaves me susceptible to theft, as simple and straightforward as that. And two, in a lot of the communities and economies that we're participating in, a dollar in my home today may very well be worth less than a dollar tomorrow based on currency fluctuation and government instability. So this concept of a digital savings bank is very critical in giving those impoverished community members the ability to have a vision beyond tomorrow. I have the ability to save. I have the ability to save in a safe way that allows me to better navigate the challenges I may face tomorrow. So how do we impact and coordinate and partner with purposeful brands around the world? We've got 3 different ways of doing that. The first is a program called Plastic Impact. It functions in a very similar manner to what most of us would recognize as a carbon offset system. So any brand that wants to participate with us can partner to invest and fund the collection of any volume of material that they would like, whether they produce a plastic product or not. So as an example, if I'm Heineken and the bulk of my product is packaged in aluminum and glass, I still recognize that my consumers are enjoying other beverages that come in plastic containers. I understand that this is a major challenge for my consumers, both at the consumer level and the retail level. And I've got my own corporate sustainable development goals that I would like to achieve. They can partner with Plastic Bank to collect the equivalent of any volume they choose, 1,000 tons, 10,000 tons, etc. For companies that currently do, in fact, use plastic in the production of an item, they can go what we consider plastic neutral in coordination with the Plastic Bank. So if they use 1,000 tons of material, we can go ahead and collect 1,000 tons. This is a unique aspect for those companies using very difficult recycled material today, as a bridge for when technology does catch up and allow those materials to be recycled in a much more effective manner. In addition to that, something unique that we've been pitching is this concept of going regenerative. So imagine a world where every bottle of shampoo purchased from a brand like Nature Box funded the collection of 2 similar bottles out of the environment. In a way, there's this concept in the consumer world where sustainability is dead. It's no longer relevant or even good enough to do less damage than you did last year. Consumers are really hungry for solutions that go beyond and help repair the damage that's been done. So again, imagine the ability of a brand or a corporation or even a government entity to say, for every pound of plastic purchased, I'm pulling 2 pounds back out of the environment. It becomes a sustainable, regenerative potential for the globe and for communities around the world. The second way we engage is obviously very straightforward. The material that we do collect, again, is cleaned, processed, and converted back into a usable state. We will collect and sell the 4 most common types of plastic. That's rPET, polypropylene, HDPE, and LDPE. We don't have to get into the details of the chemistry there, but we function as any other recycled material would, with one key difference. Our material is ethically sourced social plastic, and that is our name and brand. Material that we reintroduce back into the circular economy is called social plastic. One key example that we're very proud of, SC Johnson is a major partner of ours. They've launched this year on retail shelves and available e-commerce in North America, a Windex SKU made with vinegar, 100% produced from social plastic collected around the world. This has already seen double-digit growth on the brand line, and absolutely expect to see additional enhancement. They've also extended this exact same template into a second brand in Europe. The brand is called Mr. Muscle. It's a cleaning brand that is very popular in Ireland, the UK, and mainland Europe. Beyond this concept, one other brand I'd like to bring some attention to, Grove Collaborative is an e-commerce platform where individuals can purchase a wealth of household items from. They have been carbon balanced for the past 5 years. So any shipment purchased from Grove Collaborative, they've made a fund or a collection to make that carbon balanced, they partnered with us to also go plastic neutral. So now on all their packages, they very clearly state that they are both carbon balanced and plastic neutral. So some very potent consumer narratives there. And finally, the last way some organizations partner with us is if they're interested in a longer term legacy-based relationship with us, they can actually partner with us to help expand and create a plastic bank ecosystem in the part of the world where none exists today. A great example is SC Johnson. The SC Johnson family sponsored the build and infrastructure of Plastic Bank in Bali, specifically, with the sole goal of collecting a certain amount of material from that area every year. Henkel is also another example. Henkel just partnered with us in Egypt to collect the equivalent of 15,000 tons of material annually, with a key focus on helping clean the Mediterranean based on the amount of pollution going and entering into the Nile River. This is a quick snapshot of what the SC Johnson ecosystem looks like in Bali. I've been there personally. It's an amazing place where a lot of commerce happens. It is run as a profit entity. This is not a charity. There is no concern that someone one day is going to decide not to donate. This is an ongoing and profitable entity. And finally, just one story that we like to share with our brand partners. A key component of our program that we hadn't realized early on was that women are a very integral part of our collection system. About 70% of the collectors on the platform today are women-led households. This is an encapsulation of one of our collector members in Haiti. She's got 7 children, and through her participation with the Plastic Bank, is able to both provide meals and safety for her family, but also education and a career training program, and the ability to learn to read. As part of our program in Haiti, we've offered a literacy program for our collector members as a result of some learnings that we had done, where some collectors were at first hesitant about joining our system because they did not know how to read. Literacy is not an integral or necessary component to participate with our program, but obviously we felt the need was great enough where we put together a literacy program in that area. So that's a very quick snapshot of what we do. Wanted to share that with you with the hope of at least outlining our business. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share. I can spend a few minutes talking about my background, and then we can certainly open it up to questions. Rachel, I'll let you lead that as appropriate. So my background is pretty unique. I don't come from an environmental background. I am not a biologist or a microbiologist by trade. My training is in sales, marketing, and management. I'm also a psychology minor. I've been in and around consumer packaged goods and retail for about 25 years. I spent a good chunk of my career in software sales as well. My road to Plastic Bank was pretty unique. Basically, I knew that I had 4 personal passions. And while I was advancing my corporate career, I always kept an eye on what was going on in these 4 key areas. And the 4 key areas for me were cheap, sustainable energy, whether that's new innovation in nuclear fuel or solar power or any other method, food safety and security, continuing education for adults, and finally, this concept of circularity around sustainability and pollution. Those were 4 critical areas I had identified as places I would love to work in if I could have an intersection of my skill set in the corporate world and my personal passion. As part of that understanding, I began to do a lot of work pro bono on the side as an advisor for a number of companies in each of those areas. One of those areas was a company, a new entrepreneur who had come up with a new novel chemical plastic component. He needed help with raising a round of funding. I have a financial background as well. helped him raise a round of funding. But as part of that raise, I did about 12 months worth of research into everything recycling based, circularity, plastics pollution, etc. In my research, I came across the plastic bank. What struck me as very unique about the model was, of all the solutions I was looking at, even if someone created a novel new plastic that disappeared overnight once you were done with it, we still had this very, very visceral problem of the fact that all this material prior to that is still sitting on the planet, and oftentimes in the form of waste. Plastic Bank was the only model that seemed to address that very current challenge and did not rely on government funding or NGO funding to do that. It's interesting because now you can look in the trades and in the news, particularly in the financial news, and you can see folks like the head of Dow Chemical Asia very vocally making comments like, the value of the material that currently exists on the planet in the form of waste would be valued at $150 billion annually. So when you think about the ability to marriage capitalism, the very prescient problem, the economies of scale and the opportunity there become very apparent. In addition to that, as part of my research a few years ago on raising that round, I became keenly aware of what I will refer to as this coming tsunami of financials in the capital markets. For any of you who follow the capital markets in the finance world, there has been a whole host of private equity funds, family office-led funds, banking institutions, and corporate institutions launching billion-dollar blue and green funds with the sole purpose of creating impact. And whether that impact is called social impact, environmental impact, ESG, CSR, whatever moniker or initials you want to give it, the intention here is there's a growing desire to have my capital investments that provide growth also create growth environmentally and socially and for society. I continue to see that growth. I'm excited at the prospects of Plastic Bank to go down that path. We're currently a privately held company. We hope that changes if there's a benefit. Critical component that myself and our founder hold is this dream of, imagine a new type of IPO where the world gets to participate in a new asset class where plastic becomes a global currency. It's no longer viewed as trash. It's viewed as the US dollar, Bitcoin, climate coin, or another currency that can be used in exchange for goods and services. That's currently a dream. We've got a roadmap to get there, and we'll see if we can do it. So that's a quick nutshell on me.
No, that's great. And for all the circular economy geeks on the call, it's such a new and different type of concept than we typically hear about. So we're all excited to hear about it. I'll start off with a few different questions, and then we've gotten a bunch that have come in, and so we'll sort of just answer these, but please keep sending any sort of questions in. So just to start, you mentioned obviously you're partnering with IBM for your blockchain, and then you talked about you guys, do you do the recycled plastic yourself? Do you have a company that sort of outsources it, that you outsource to do that? So how does that structure work?
Great question. We are not a recycler. We do not own any recycling equipment. We partner as best we can with in-country processors and converters to get the material back into a value-add state. So we are not doing any of that processing.
Okay, and then a lot of times there are, so you mentioned 4 types of plastic that you can recycle. There are a lot of types that you cannot. So, and you say none goes to landfill. So what happens to all those types of plastic that can't be recycled that you don't put into landfill?
Certainly, another great question. So the way the marketplace works today is the collective members and the communities we serve know and understand what material is quote unquote assigned a value. So they know these materials will get me X, these materials will get me Y, these materials don't yet have a value. So the material that's coming to our collection centers is material that all has a value. We've added and subsidized that value with this bonus or digital savings component with participation from our brand partners. Our goal would be, as difficult to recycle material becomes more valuable, a key example for us is flexible packaging and multi-layer sachet waste. Today, there's no value in that material. There is recycling technology that is beginning to advance. As that continues to advance, we will have already had built a supply chain system that can feed that technological engine. So if tomorrow, all of a sudden, there is a reactor in Indonesia that can financially effectively process sachet waste, we can overnight turn on our collector members and say, guess what? This material that is littering the community, that is going into your waste bins and getting incinerated, bring it directly from your home to us. It now has a value.
Great. And do you guys do any work or sort of funding or encouraging of developing these new methods and different, just to recycle stuff that couldn't be recycled before?
So we don't directly partner in the creation of new innovative recycling technologies yet. I will tell you, as the head of sales, I definitely keep an eye on the new and up and coming recycling technology. There are a lot to be very optimistic about. You've got Loop Industries, which is recycling what was typically waste PET back into virgin PET or virgin-like. You've got, which is different from Loop, TerraCycle Loop. You've got InnoVenture, which is a P&G funded technology company doing amazing things in the world of molecular recycling. There's a lot of amazing technology, hopefully coming online very quickly, but we don't directly participate yet.
Okay. And so I'll start fielding some questions from the audience here. So a question, so bottle bills are deposit return systems. So it's more of a question of why don't the big CPG companies, so you're saying SC Johnson is already one of your clients, but just fund these deposits rather than pay for the recouped plastics?
Sure. Super complicated challenge. You can look at just the recycling industry in North America. In some states, it's on the verge of collapse. The reason it's on the verge of collapse is super ineffective ability to sort valuable material from what's considered less valuable material. The hope with the bottle bill originally was consumers would take that material, return it, and collect their deposit back. What we're finding is that small financial incentive in a developed country is not high enough to incent that collection. So what ends up happening is that material is then put into the municipal waste collection system, which our hope then becomes it gets recycled and the recycler extracts that value. Europe is unique in that they have very high recycling rates. That's less to do with the quote unquote bottle bill and more to do with consumer sentiment around these materials. And the fact that corporations in that part of the world tend to get incentivized by recycling that material. In addition to that, candidly, there's a financial component. Consumer packaged goods are wary of paying a number to a government entity with the hope of solving this challenge. We can get into a very philosophical debate on another call. There's this other whole concept in the corporate world where for years Coca-Cola was, let's say, placing the responsibility on the consumer's shoulders. Hey, I sold you a great product. The minute you buy it and enjoy it, that package is sort of your responsibility. Obviously, there's been a huge shift in that feeling and thought. And the move has now become, whether you feel that's accurate or not, corporations feel it's to their benefit to take a bigger role in that responsibility. Aside from that, in the parts of the world where we operate, that recycling system, that bottle bill deposit system doesn't exist. And oftentimes running water doesn't exist. So waste management is an issue, let alone the ability to recycle. It's interesting. We had a conversation with someone where they said, well, why don't you just go into these communities like Haiti and educate the community on the benefits of recycling. And our response was, one, there's no place to take this material. Where is it going to get recycled? And two, if your concern is, can I feed my family for the next 2 days? Recycling falls down your key list of desires and needs. And that's just a blatant fact. The minute you give that material a value, the poor don't throw money away, right? So all of a sudden this material is looked at in a very different way, and that's our goal.
Gotcha. And so while we're on the question of responsibility, can you just talk about what you believe the role of government and legislators are to address this plastic crisis? And then if there's any relationship with that and Plastic Bank and what you're doing now?
Absolutely, yeah. So Plastic Bank today, by design, does not engage government entities for assistance or funding or growth. So in cases where it's necessary, for example, in the Philippines, we'll obviously involve the government, so we do everything above board. We are not dependent on the Philippine government providing the subsidy. When it comes to government's role in responsible use of these materials, there are some unique things happening. Europe and South America in particular are on the verge of launching what they call ERP regulations, extended producer responsibility, EPR. That obviously is a game changer. And the regulation there quite simply says, if you produce a product, you are also responsible for the cost of the disposal of that product. So in essence, we're including a levy or a tax that hopefully gets to the true cost of a material produced. That would be a game changer in a number of categories. And we see Europe and some states moving quickly in that direction.
Okay. And then you touched upon women are actually a lot of the people that are bringing the plastic there. I assume children might also be involved within some of these developing countries. So can you just talk about that, and then the role of making sure there isn't child labor and those sorts of ethical issues there?
Absolutely. We address that in two ways. One, with our collector members, in order to participate on the platform, you need to be on the platform. And there are 3 ways to do that. The first is, if you're lucky enough to have a smartphone, we have an app. You can download the app and participate in the platform. That includes a photo, it includes identification information, etc., including an age verification step. 2, acknowledging that smartphone penetration is not as high in the developing world as it is in the developed world. We have a quote-unquote conventional phone application as well, where you could just SMS and participate. That requires you signing up at a Plastic Bank collection branch in person, and an age verification happens there. And finally, if you don't have access to a phone at all, or there's only a single family phone, which is quite often the case, you can register at the collection branch in person. You're given a unique identifying code. That code is used each and every time you transact. In the cases where children approach a Plastic Bank collection center, our branch manager will go out of their way to identify the family involved. They will not turn away a family in need, but they'll work with the community to identify which family it is and mitigate that issue. That's been a key critical component for us. The other avenue that we've been taking, which sort of addresses this problem at the root cause, is we've realized that every community typically has 2 things in place. There's a place of worship and a place of education. So we're approaching some of these communities and saying, instead of coming Sunday to your place of worship with a monetary offering, bring your household's plastic waste in replacement of your offering, and that becomes your donation. And then we'll go and collect that material directly from the house of worship. That same model has begun to be used in schools as well, hopefully once we all go back to physical schools, where families whose children are attending school can take the household material, bring it with them once a week to their school. That material is collected, the value is then transferred back to their family or used to pay tuition. we've got a number of collectors who are using this material as a substitute to their income to pay for their children's education.
Gotcha. So we've touched upon like low access to internet and maybe not access to a phone. So how are they able to utilize the digital credit if they
Sure.
don't have access to that?
Absolutely. Yep. So the way our system works today is you can approach a plastic bank collection branch and immediately exchange all your material for local fiat currency right there on the spot. You are given this digital bonus that goes into your bonus savings account. If you don't want to keep it in that savings account, you just tell the branch manager you would like to cash that out. They will conduct a transaction for you. They will show you the transaction on their phone, and that hard currency is given to you on the spot. So it's not as though we are forcing our collector members to hold this money in their digital savings account. They can redeem it the minute it becomes applicable to them.
Okay. And then you've talked a little bit about community outreach, going to the churches and the schools. In general, a bunch of the countries like Indonesia, the Philippines, China, they have a very strong informal waste collection system. So can you just talk about the outreach there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we take a unique approach based on each country that we're entering. So as an example, in Haiti, there was no informal system in place. We, in essence, created one. Indonesia, to your very well made point, very different. There is a very there's a formal informalized structure in place. What we will do is we will enter the community and say, you guys are already collecting material. You're getting only market value. If you partner with Plastic Bank, you get the ability to use our technology. You get enhanced market rates. So you get this ability to access market rate plus this digital bonus. You've got the ability to have this digital bonus in a digital savings account. And if you're a small, they're called typically junk shop owner, we're also providing technology business tools that allow you to operate your business in a much more easier manner. So you begin to see enhanced efficiency and collection rates go up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So good.
Oh no. Finish your thought, and then I have a couple other questions to.
Yeah, we take a very case-by-case approach with regard to which country we're entering. We've learned a lot of lessons. In some countries, it was originally our intention to sort of show up as Plastic Bank and say, invite everyone. What we've realized is when we give ownership of the collection branch to the community takes ownership and protects that collection branch. So if, for example, a solar light was provided and it looked like a Canadian company installing a solar light in this Plastic Bank branch, the solar light was stolen, right? It had a value, it was taken. When the solar light is installed as part of a community-owned Plastic Bank collection center, all of a sudden it's left alone, it provides a value to the community, it's protected, and it's enjoyed as such. So a lot of lessons for us to learn.
And then just some of the rhetoric that the companies use and you guys use. So it's, you buy the bottle and then you remove some from the environment. So just the feeling behind, do you think this, makes it plastic like appropriate and further perpetuates our use of plastic? Do you find ever that people are just generating more plastic so they can turn it into your areas for redeeming it for currency?
But we're not we're not seeing the creation of additional plastic for the exchange value at our collection centers. That there's just so much of this stuff currently available. There's no need for that. We have a pretty hard stance against the use of single-use plastics wherever possible. Our goal is there should be no creation of additional virgin plastic where it's not needed. Enough of this material could be in circulation if it were assigned a value and continue to be reused. The sort of flippant example my founder and some others have used is, if every soda bottle was worth €2, there wouldn't be any littering the streets or the oceans or the beaches. So we have to take this material and give it enough value where it is no longer disposed of improperly.
Gotcha. Okay, and then just from the businesses that you partner with, usually the recycled plastic right now is more expensive than just getting the virgin material. So, and I know you haven't been operating too long with like SC Johnson and their new product, but do you have data on the cost that these customers are willing to spend for the social plastic and the reputational benefit there?
Yeah, that's a critical challenge, particularly for me on the sales side. Yes, our material is more expensive than virgin plastic. I don't know how familiar the audience is with regard to what's going on in the virgin resin world, but petroleum companies obviously have been losing money on fuel and are perched to begin to create a ton of single-use virgin plastic. The price of that material has dropped enormously. The cost of recycled material is higher than virgin material. And then the cost of what I call social plastic recycled material is higher even than that. We are by far the most premium of the three. The challenge that we face is engaging with brand partners who understand the cost premium of that material is due to the fact that it is bringing both environmental and social impact. It's beginning to reflect the true cost of collecting and recycling that material. It's not this low-grade material that's been collected and all you're doing is taking from the lowest denominator and reintroducing it back. The program that we bring to light transfers real value back to the folks that are collecting the material.
And
but it's
then,
a constant challenge for us.
Yeah, and then just with your outreach to companies, have you found it difficult to engage them? I know at the beginning it's hard to start out, and what sort of does that projection look like? And then do you ever do outreach to those companies that probably don't have sustainability as at the forefront of their mind?
Yeah, so the company, Plastic Bank, has been in place and operating for the past 7 years. I've been with the company for a year. The last year has seen a lot of growth. We've been working with SC Johnson for a number of years. Two things. One, the challenge for us is not getting the initial meeting. Our business model is unique enough where folks are interested to understand how it is we're doing what we're doing. Oftentimes, the initial, which I understand, human reaction is, this seems a little too good to be true. You're going to help me fight plastic pollution by stopping poverty. Help me understand that. So the first meeting is never the issue. The challenge for us becomes, am I dealing with an organization that is at a stage where they both A, understand the value of investing in the future, and B, are willing to see beyond just the cost, but recognize the value with regard to the consumer. Consumers, especially in the younger demographics, are beginning to vote by boycotting, if you will, instead of boycotting, where folks are switching their buying behavior based on the world they want to see. So the companies that we engage in understand and recognize that and want to participate. Other companies, particularly large, privately held, family-owned businesses, want to do it because they have a family legacy that they would like to see make a change. Henkel is one such company, large, very large, privately held, family-owned organization, multi-billion-dollar, multinational company, still family-owned. Their interest in Egypt was purely driven by the founding family. Of course, it has marketing value. Of course, there's material value. But they had a strong desire and appetite to create change.
Okay. And then some questions regarding around the benefits and programs in these countries. So I have sort of two questions here that we can put together. So do you have any sort of non-monetary incentives that you see making people change their behavior? And then sort of following on that, how do you determine what like programs and benefits people get from turning it
Yep.
in? And do you have, in those countries, do you have people on your staff that reflect those backgrounds so they can make appropriate decisions and suggestions?
Yes, absolutely. We have an in-country team in every country in which we operate, and they are all locals to that community, right? So we are employing members of the local community. In regards to non-monetary benefits, we are very aggressively working on some unique benefits to our collector members that get unlocked at certain collection rates or certain activities. Things like, imagine you're a plastic bank collector member, and one of the benefits you get by participating is either free or low cost health insurance, or life insurance, or employment interruption insurance, or the ability to have free data. So if you bring in 100 kilos a year of material, we will provide you some level of data for free for your family needs, so you can conduct business on a mobile device, or potentially even a mobile phone loan program. So we are very much actively looking at additional benefits. Another key area for us is we are engaging certain companies who want to offer benefits. So if you're a pharmaceutical company, you've got access to nutritional products, or pharmaceutical products, or vaccinations. Imagine a system where a plastic bank collector member, by the fact that they are a member, gets access to a free vaccination once a month. So we very much are pursuing additional benefit models.
Okay, that's interesting. And then just in general, there are probably not exactly what you're doing, but there are some competing programs out there, and stuff that the government has put on. China recently in Shanghai just released their new waste rule, and they get points for all the stuff that they collect. So can you just talk about that relationship there, whether there might be any partnering, or you guys will just work in tandem and just look at that?
Sure. So in regard to the question around competition, candidly, we refer to it as co-opetition. We understand that this problem is so large and of such a magnitude, it's going to take a portfolio approach. We welcome other interested parties using our model or a slightly different model or another model completely. Not an issue for us at all. India and China are unique. We have, by design, not gone into those countries. India functions more like 50 countries inside one immense country. If and when we enter India, we want to do so properly, right? We need the proper learning, the proper research to be able to do that in a way that's effective. China, super different example. Their government takes a very firm stance in a number of initiatives. They've got a 5-year plan, they've got a 10-year plan, they've got a 20-year plan. They have a rigorous system on how they would like to tackle the problem. We certainly have interest in Asia. I don't know that China in particular will be a target for Plastic Bank. Not to say it's not a fertile ground for others. And we hope to see that.
And then just a question which I seem always gets asked, connecting to what's happening right now in the pandemic. So has there been any slowdown in the efforts to collect and transport plastic? What have you guys sort of seen in your business model?
Absolutely. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a huge concern, especially as certain countries had lockdowns. The Philippines is a really good example. They had a very strict lockdown where folks who were relying on their collection activity to feed their families were now being told you're not allowed to leave your home. So obviously a major challenge related to livelihoods. In response, we launched a sort of a COVID loan program so that community members could approach a plastic bank collection center and, based on their history with us, could qualify for a short-term loan and repay the loan back in plastic over the course of time. That was a Band-Aid. It was sort of a short-term, hey, we see an immediate need. The good news is, thankfully, we've begun to see these countries open up and collection activities continuing again. So on the one hand, it impacted our members because we're talking about the most vulnerable on the globe. So any change globally really has a disparate impact on them. On the business side of things, the companies that we tend to operate with are companies that are doing very well for a host of reasons, especially consumer packaged good companies. For better or for worse, I don't know what they're telling us, but bottled beverage companies are doing just fine. Food companies are doing just fine, if not better than before. Household cleaning items are showing 10, 20, I saw 35% year-over-year growth for the first time in their history. It's insane to think that a Clorox, for the first time since they've founded the company, has seen these levels of growth. So in that regard, we've been blessed in that a lot of the clients that we work with recognize the value and have been taking financial measures to ensure they're in a good spot.
Okay. And then let's do one more question, sort of just wrap it up. This will be a light one. So what do you love most about the work that you do, and what are the biggest challenges?
Sure. Great question. So something super unique for me. Look, I love working for a company where I can take a skill set that I have and turn it into value and be proud of the impact and the work we make, right? It's great to say things like, I'm proud of the work I do. I can come home and tell my family about what happened today and feel really good about that. What struck me when I started this role was how many people in my personal and professional network would approach me and make comments like, I can't imagine how good it must feel like to enjoy what you do every day. And that struck me because here I was thinking, oh, it's a small percentage of us who really want to stop doing what we're doing and find something else. And here I was confronted with like 90% of the people I knew where, if they thought about it, working at jobs where the outcome was not in line with their personal passion and motive. That was shocking. Challenges, I mean, the challenges are mountainous. One, we're working in some of the most challenging business environments in the world. Haiti doesn't have stable electricity, let alone internet. So getting material in and out of Haiti is a challenge. Two, as amazing as their business model is, we need to find clients that are willing and ready to work with us. And three, there are a ton of areas around the world that we haven't gotten to yet. We've just touched Indonesia. We're just barely touching the Philippines. And that's with collecting upwards of 15 million kilograms of material already. So there's a ton of work ahead of us to be done.
Yeah, I'm sure. And hopefully there's a ton of plastic, so keep going with your work. I think we've reached the end of our time. So it's been a pleasure having you talk with us and answer all of our questions. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone that attended this webinar. If you have any more questions that weren't answered, feel free to email me and I can pass them along to Tony and see if we can get a response there. We'll be having more of these webinars throughout the summer and the fall, so please refer to your CBAY emails and keep coming back. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel.